Welcome to Being Extraordinary with Akasha Awaken. Here we awaken the Akash to the non-physical reality that stores ancient wisdom and magic for us all. This podcast is dedicated to the stories, the knowledge, and the people who have found a way to tap into this knowledge and bring it into our physical reality, fully allowing themselves to embrace our true and extraordinary nature, and hopefully inspiring you to do the same. All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Being Extraordinary. Today, I have, again, a very special guest. We have Tash Brown in the house. And Tash and I met through, how did we even get connected, actually? You just came and did some of my services, but I don't know how you found me. And we've been kind of on this journey together for a little while. And I think your healing journey is really incredible because you've taken some great chances on what matters to you. You followed your heart, and it's gotten you to some pretty cool places. So I would love to kind of pick your brain about your journey and whatever you want to share. And then remind me, how did you find me? I don't even remember.
Yeah, so I found you through a Reiki master. Her name is Shelby Grise.
Oh, yes, Shelby.
Yeah, I went to elementary school with her.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. Yeah. I see how we're all connected.
Yeah, right. And so she was just like, I have somebody that you should try to get a service from, because she said that she knew you. So that's essentially how we got in touch.
Okay, that's awesome. It's always funny to me how interconnected all of us end up becoming. Anyone who's a part of a lightworker family, I find we just gravitate to each other, and it never ceases to surprise me how we all know each other. So that's awesome. Thank you, Shelby. If you're listening, thank you, Shelby. This has been a great connection.
Definitely. Thank you, Shelby.
Yes. So why don't you take us back to kind of the beginning of your healing journey and how it all started and how it progressed?
So where it started for me was, I want to say, at rock bottom.
Yes, as it typically does.
Which I feel like, yeah. So it really catapulted for me in 2020, was it? Yeah, 2020, which is funny since that was kind of like the COVID year. But I think it was necessary because before that, I would do little readings from friends, or I would just be on YouTube, and they would always say, you need to spend more time with yourself. And I was always kind of by myself anyway. So I was just like, how much more focusing on myself do I need to do? But yeah, so 2020, I got into a car accident. And then I was in massage therapy school at the time, and it was like life forced me to take a pause. Now that I'm thinking about it, I couldn't even, I can't watch TV. I can't study. I can't do anything. Whenever I was trying to read, I had post-concussion syndrome. So it was like my brain was not computing. And at that time in my life, I was also going to school. So was finishing my master's program in Texas. I finished that and was trying to find a job in Edmonton, was not finding anything. So then I was just like, well, why don't I do something that will complement my degree? Went to massage therapy school. And so I feel like at that moment, I was kind of lost a little bit. Not necessarily just, in life, career wise, but internally as well. And so when I had that car accident and my car got totaled and I couldn't really do anything, and I was just kind of sidelined. And I'll just mention too, I was a track athlete that represented Team Canada a few times as well. And that I ended up basically retiring from track too. So it was kind of like all of these, I was in a transitional period, but I just wasn't sure where I was transitioning to. So for me, moving back home was somewhat bittersweet because I loved it in Texas. And I didn't love it in Edmonton, where I was born and raised.
And for anyone who knows, everyone knows where Texas is, but Edmonton is God, 5 days of a drive straight north. It is to the frosty, bitter cold of Canada.
Yeah,
Quite the difference, yeah.
quite the difference. So, during that time, and I'm trying to like provide current, like it's like since I'm now looking back, so I'm trying to provide that hindsight just to give the listeners an idea of who I was at that time, because I'm literally a completely different person. But growing up, I was always that people pleaser person. I was always I'm the oldest of two brothers, but I feel like, when you have your I grew up with my one brother, babe, my younger brother, and then my other brother, I met him later on in life, like as I met him like in my 20s.
Mhm.
So it was just the two of us growing up. But like when you have your younger brother looking to you for everything and your parents are kind of, I'll say, emotionally unavailable, you tend to
Mhm.
take on a lot of that responsibility. And so I feel like I grew up being that, like wanting to be the golden child per se. So essentially putting all of my needs to the side and always putting others before myself, always learning, living by the golden rule, treat others how you would like to be treated. And
Mhm.
so as I was growing up, I realized that it just was not working out for me. It just was like, no matter how well I treated others, no matter how much I gave of myself, it was like it was never enough, and I was never getting it back, essentially. And so as I'm moving into my teenage years, I'm realizing, okay, I'm not really happy with life. um it was like, this is cool, I guess. And everybody, my mom's like, everybody is looking up to you, the family wishes their daughters and kids turn out to be like you. I'm this track athlete that's representing Canada and one of the fastest in Canada at the time, and
Wow.
I'm in school doing my bachelor's degree, moving on to my master's degree. And so it's
What
like
did you
on
study?
paper.
What did you study, just so the
Oh,
listeners.
so I did a bachelor's in kinesiology, and I actually did another bachelor's in French, and then I did a minor in psychology with an emphasis in physical therapy while running track and working.
Wow, what a golden child you were. Yeah.
Basically, yeah. So, and then I did my master's in sports and exercise science, and then I did an additional year of massage therapy school. So,
You're
and
fully
then have
loaded with
been
skills, that's for sure.
and then I've just been doing your courses ever since. It's like if I'm not in one thing, I'm in another thing. So, yeah. So essentially, I just was always taught how to make others happy and never myself happy. And that's when I got to my bachelor's. When I finished my bachelor's degree at 22, I realized I just I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what my values were. I didn't know what my morals were. I was just unhappy with life. And it really hit me when I got my first tattoo. And I was always fascinated with tattoos. When I was younger, I was always getting those little dollar stamps that you can just put in the little machines,
Mhm.
or going to the dollar store and getting little, fake tattoos everywhere. And I was just like, growing up, my mom grew up in a really strict Christian home. So she was like, if you get tattoos, you go to hell. So that's my mindset. I'm like, this is like the worst thing I could do for my family. Like, no one in my family has tattoos.
Mhm.
And I'm this golden child. And so I was just like, I'm going to do it. And so I got
Wow.
my first tattoo, and that caused a huge rift within my family. And I didn't me and my mom, we talked every day, and I don't think we talked for months. And I did it before I moved home, because I knew I was moving home, and I was like, I know I won't be able to do this at her house. So I was like, let me do this while I'm not home. And then I went and got two more. So I got three tattoos, kind of all within like a at 22, around my birthday in April. And I realized for me at the time that that symbolized the control that I felt like I lacked in my life. And that's when I really started realizing this is the first thing that I feel like I've genuinely done for myself. School was just like, okay, I just did that kind of for track. I didn't really love running track, to be honest with you. I just was good at it, and it was kind of a means to an end for me. And so everything that I did, I realized at that point, like, it didn't really represent anything that I would have, I guess, chosen to do for myself. And the tattoos for me, which now I have a bunch, but tattoos for me just represented that, like, part of my identity and the journey to finding that identity as well. So fast forward to 2020, when COVID hit and I finished my master's degree, and then I was at rock bottom and everything. And I'm now transitioning again, and I'm realizing, okay, I'm really unhappy with life. Like, I ended up getting a huge tattoo on my hip, because for me, tattoos just kind of help me, like, just, I guess it's just grasping at straws to get some control. And then I realized that I was getting tattoos every time that I felt like life was spiraling. And so it's just kind of funny that I realized that my biggest tattoo was when I hit rock bottom, like my whole hip. I got an elephant, and it was funny because I always tell people, like, I was so against TikTok. I was super against TikTok, and I resisted it for so long. And then finally, in the midst of COVID and everything, in the midst of me not being able to study or anything, I was just like, okay, you know what? Let me get on TikTok.
Oh.
What can it hurt? And so I get on TikTok, and I see this guy, and I can't remember his name because it was so long ago. And he was doing little videos about kind of like empaths and a spiritual journey, and what do you call it? Lucid dreaming and stuff like that. And so I was interested. I was like, this isn't something that I've really heard about. So, but it kind of resonated with me. And so what I ended up doing, he was like, you can book with me to get a reading or something. And I had already done little readings here and there. Like, I had been to psychics and stuff, but I wasn't really familiar with anything involving the spiritual realm, I guess you could say. So, and I grew up in a French Catholic school. My family's Christian, so I was more like religious. Like, I went to church even when I was trying to find myself and find happiness. I was reading the Bible every day, doing Bible plans every day, and it was just like it was not working for me. Like, I'm praying my butt off, and it's just like, I don't know what else to do to be happy. Like, I don't know. I was like, I know I cannot be put here to be like I felt like a sad shell of a person, to be honest. Like, I was just like, I was never truly happy. And to be honest, I thought about dying very often. Like, I just thought about not being here very, very often growing up. I was like, I can't wait for this to be over. And the only reason why I'm still here today is because I know my parents would not be here if I wasn't here. Right. And to be honest, to be completely transparent. So it's like, this was kind of at this point with the effects from my car accident. It was just, I was at the doctor's office doing CAT scans, I'm getting seizure symptoms, all of these crazy things are happening that I've never felt before. Like, I'm just spiraling at this point. Now I'm on anxiety medication, all of these crazy things. And so I find this TikTok, and I book a reading with him, and he's telling me, you have this goddess energy, you have all this love and light, you have these spirit guides, you have so many people, like, either praying for you, like, you have a large group of support, like, he's telling me you're guided and protected, all of these things. And he was just like, I just see like this happy energy, like, you just are a happy person. And I was just like, no. Like, I was just like, he was like, how do you feel about that? And I was like, that just doesn't rest. Like, I feel really sad. And he was just like, you're not a sad person though. Like, and I'm like, does he know what he's talking about? Because I'm like, I'm like sad every day. And he was just like, maybe you're an empath. And I was just like, I don't know what that is, and he was like, maybe you're just absorbing people's energy. Cause he was like, that's not the vibe I get from you. Like, he was like, your aura is just this beautiful aura. And so I was like, okay, get this reading. And I'm just like, okay. Then Shelby, who you mentioned at the beginning, from elementary, have not even seen her since like literally elementary. She starts, and I'm a big supporter. Like, if I know you, even if we're not super close, like, if you have a business, I'm going to support you. So she was doing Reiki healing for donations just to start her business. And so I saw her post and I was just like, I'll do it. Didn't know what it was, but I was like, I'll do it. And then when, like, I kid you not, the day that I did that Reiki healing, my life has never been the same. Like it has literally never been the same. And I almost want to cry thinking about it. Like, it
I
brings
know,
me,
that's a powerful statement. You're gonna make me cry over here.
yeah, like, because it's just like, oh, when you feel like so unhappy every single day and you're like, why am I so unhappy, you know? And I did this Reiki session with her and I just felt like, I just felt free. Like, I just felt surrounded by love. Like, I just felt genuine happiness. And like, I told myself I'll never go back. I was like, I'll never go back, whatever it takes. Like, and so I did that reading with her. I did that healing session with her. And she was telling me, like, you're in a rough patch right now, but once you get through this, like, it'll, like, your future will be great. Like, it'll be bright. It's looking up, all of these things. And so that's essentially when my groundwork started. And um yeah, I ended up from there, because I had a therapist for my car accident. So I ended up from there going to therapy with my mom. We ended up doing therapy together because we had a rocky relationship. We could not communicate. And I just found myself, like, bits and pieces when I found that happiness. And it was just weird because it just, like, came and never left. Like, I don't even know how to explain it. But when she told me, I told her, like, I've never felt this happy before. Like, I was afraid it was going to leave me. That's how, like, how good it felt. Like, I was afraid it wasn't going to last. And she told me, she was like, maybe you're an empath. And I was like, okay, it's the second time that someone's telling me that I'm an empath. So let me look into this. And so then I started buying books and researching and doing things like that. And what I realized was I really was taking on all of this energy and I just hadn't let any of it go, like, forever. And
Wow.
so when I realized, okay, I need to release this energy, I need to do things to ground myself, I need to sun gaze, I need to put myself in nature. And at that time I had a dog, which looking back, because it was my brother's dog that I ended up just taking care of. Looking back, he was just another factor that helped save my life, because although I was an athlete, I hated being outside. Like, I hated being outside, probably because I was always outside already. But it was more in, like, such a high stress environment. And so when I was, like, taking this dog, this big Labrati, for walks every day, at first it was just like once every few days for like 20 minutes. But then it started being like almost like 2-hour walks twice a day for an hour, 3-hour walks. And it was just like, I just was like breathing in this nature and just like being, like, becoming connected and being able to feel like that cleansing, and just, it was just like feeling in tune with the universe. It was just the strangest, like, happiest feeling. And then I was starting to just, like, in the weirdest way, just like piece things together from there on. Like, okay, I need to find what makes me happy. Because again, every time I logged in on TikTok, it was like the universe was just throwing signs at me and it was just resonating. So I was just taking what resonated, and it was just like, okay, what makes me happy? I never asked myself this before. And so I was just like, okay, well, I like playing with the dog. I like walks. I like music. I'm listing these things and I'm doing these things every day. I'm like, okay, do things that make you happy. Focus on doing these things that make you happy. And then the more I'm focusing on these things and the more, I'm working on myself, working with my mom in our relationship. And I'm just like, okay, I'm still like, I'm happy, but I was just like, there's still something missing. And I was just like, my goal originally was to live in Dallas before I graduated. And I was just like, okay, well, at the time, my friend, she was working with her mom and then she quit. And so her mom was looking for someone to replace her. And she just happened to reach out to me, and her company's in the US. And so she was just like, well, I can get you, a remote job. And so then I'm working remotely now. And then it just like popped into my head and was like, you can move. And I was just like, but can I move? And so my friend, I had already booked a flight to visit her in Dallas. I just booked a one way. And excuse me, I booked a one way. And so I was just like, I'll just stay for like a couple months. And she was like, well, why don't you just move? And I was like, well, that one way was already booked. Like I didn't have this planned or anything. So long story short, I'm Googling, I'm Googling, how do I move to America? Can I move to America? All these things. Cause I was all excited. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to move. And then I realized, okay, you can't just move to America. You need a work visa. You need all these things. So
yeah, there's a lot of hoops to jump through. Yeah.
Yeah. So I started getting discouraged and she was like, no, like you can do this. Like, just figure out which way will best suit you, figure out which visa will best suit you and, make it work. And so even in the company, her mom was like, okay, well, she never had an employee at that point. They were all contractors and I needed to be an employee. So she was like, you have to convince me. She was like, you need to give me a presentation on why I should hire you. What are the benefits and all of these things. So it's like these daunting tasks that I've never had to do before. And I just had to believe in myself that, okay, like if I want this, like I just need to make it happen. And so then I started telling myself, okay, I'm moving to Dallas. People were asking me, and I'm telling them I'm moving to Dallas. Even when I didn't believe it, I'm saying I'm moving to Dallas. And again, I'm watching these TikToks. They're talking about angel numbers. And now I'm seeing these angel numbers. And I'm seeing it was so interesting because I kept seeing 1, 2, 3, 4. I always saw that every day. Every time I would even think about Dallas, I saw 1, 2, 3, 4. And I was always seeing like 11, 11. And I was just like, okay, I'm researching and I'm on path. I'm on my track. Like, okay, so I'm like literally scared. I'm scared shitless because I'm just like, my mom is telling me this is a bad idea. Like everyone's like, why do you want to move to America? That's just such a, so it's like there's not a lot of support backing me, but and just a backstory, I visited Dallas one time and I've flew to a good amount of places with track and my spirit was like, this is home. And I was there for less than 24 hours. And I've been to a lot of places and I've never went somewhere and just felt like this is home for me. And from that point on, I was like, I have to live here. And so I was like, okay, like I'm literally moving on a whim, on a feeling, essentially. Don't know anyone here, don't have any family. And I was just like, I'm going to do this. And so essentially, long story short, I ended up planning for it, ended up doing these presentations, ended up getting my work visa, moving to Dallas. And now I'm here.
Yes, you made it.
Life is great. And the crazy thing is what happened, I ended up getting into a relationship that ended up bringing me a lot of sadness.
Oh no.
And that's when I reached out and found Caleb because I was like, I need to get to a place that like I need to get to this goddess energy that they're talking about. I need to figure out who I am as a person. I need to find this I was already like I knew what was the cause of my sadness then was this person that I was allowing to take away my sadness versus before when I was sad, I didn't know why I was sad. It was just because I had all this energy that I was holding on to. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, I need to be able to have this life that I desire, this happiness that I desire. And so that's when I reached out to you. And then I did the Akashic records. And I don't even know how many I've done at this point, but, and then you really helped me find myself, essentially. You helped me realize, okay, this is the reason why. And just sorry to go back. I realized the reason why I reached out to you was because, again, I kept treating people how I would like to be treated. And it just was not working out for me. And I was like, why am I this like great, amazing person with such a huge heart that just keeps getting taken advantage of? Mm-hmm. And I just did not know how to stop that from happening. And so then when I did that karmic, when you talked about the karma, and it was basically me having to realize, okay, karma is not be this amazing person and spontaneously you're just going to get amazing things back. Like you made me realize like Karma is how you treat yourself, and the situations you put yourself is what the universe looks at and goes, okay, you like this. Okay, you don't like this. We'll give you more of this or we'll give you less of this. And so when I kept giving and giving and giving, and people kept taking and taking and taking, the universe was like, oh, yeah, she likes this. Let's keep putting her in these situations for her to give herself away to everybody. And so from that day forward, I'm telling you, like, instantly, I was like, I'm telling you, like, I don't know if it's the Aries in me, because when I know something, like, I got to act on it like this. I'm cutting people off the same day. Like, I am, because when you're so fed up of like a treatment, like, instantly, like, I'm like, I have to change. Like you said, if you do the same thing over and over, you're gonna get the same results. And so when you basically gave me the blueprint, it was like, all you have to do is just stop. Just, if you don't like it, don't do it. And then that's what I ended up doing. Like, it wasn't easy. Like, don't get me wrong, some stuff was easy, but like, growth really is hard. Like, it's not easy to look at somebody that, like, you love or you just have this insane connection with, but in your heart that that's not the right person for you, to look at them and be like, no, I'm walking away because my spirit's telling me. Like, not because you're necessarily treating me bad, even though obviously, like, I wouldn't feel this way if you were treating me in the way I deserve. But it's like, it's not easy to look at your mom and your brother and your dad, or just be like, I get that I'm a safe space for you, but you can't keep dumping on me. And then and dealing with the backlash and the friction. Like, it's a hard journey to travel, because people look at you like, what happened? Like, are you going through something? Like, people kind of make you feel like you're like crazy because you're choosing yourself, and you're just like, no, you're just not used to me choosing me first. And so essentially I had to choose me in order for the universe to have to bring people in my life to also choose me. And so one of the biggest lessons I learned in 2022, which was through a relationship, which taught me, like, I broke things off with someone that was probably one of the best relationships I had, but their trauma was so overwhelming. And because I had just did the childhood trauma course with Kayla, it was like, okay, I'm doing this course, and now you're exhibiting all these behaviors that I'm working to, like, leave behind. And my spirit's telling me this is not your forever person. So, deal with that how you want to, but, like, I'm feeling it, like, and I feel like part of me honestly did try to ignore that. And whenever you ignore your spirit, the outcome is going to be the outcome, regardless of whether you want to ignore it or not.
Oh yeah,
so
it just gets more painful the longer you resist, and then you get, like, things like, I'm not saying that this is what happened, but, like, you ignore your spirit and then you get in a car accident, and it's like, pay attention, and that stuff's happened to me too, where everything you thought was your safety gets taken away because you weren't listening, and you're like, oh, you're like, thanks universe, but not really. Like,
yeah. And the crazy thing is, my hair started thinning because I was that's the thing that I noticed with me, is like, I physically will feel the, like, repercussions of a decision. Like, if there is somebody, like you said, that's an energy vampire, and I know that this person is an energy vampire, and I know that I'm not supposed to be, like, entertaining a conversation, if I allow myself to, like, be subjected to whatever it is they're spewing, I will feel like a sadness and a heaviness in my chest that's, like, literally like, okay, so because you're doing this, we're like, you're gonna feel like crap too. Like, so when, like, people do not understand when I tell you, like, when I tell you I cannot go back, because I feel it so intensely. Like, it's not even like a subtle, oh, like, literally, even if I do a favor for someone who I know wouldn't do it for me, I will literally feel like it's like a smallest tinge, but I feel it, and it'll just bring me down a little bit. And before, I wasn't aware of that, but now it's like, I know why. When I was saying before, when I was so sad, it's because I just kept giving and giving and giving, and I didn't realize how that affected me. So,
and it's very cool that you have that connection to your body, because honestly, like, I've worked with the body for a while myself, and it seems to me like the body is almost the most intuitive instrument that we have. And
Mm-hmm.
if we just listen to it, we could easily get ourselves where we need to go. But most people, yeah, like aren't paying attention, aren't as intuitive, can't feel it.
Mm-hmm.
It takes
Yeah,
that, you
that's
have to train yourself to do it, to be able to feel into your body. And it's curious. I wonder if, like, obviously you have to clear the energy to be able to feel it. But I also think it's interesting how we're in track, kinesiology, massage, like you almost have this pull to like the mechanics of the body. So I wonder if that like helped you
I was
listen
gonna
to
say
it.
I was gonna say I don't think I would feel this way if it wasn't for track. Because like I'm the type, I mean, obviously when you're, one of the fastest in Canada, you have to have a certain caliber, but like I was to the point where I could, if we had a workout that was like, okay, you have to run like 10 200s at 25 seconds or 10 200s at 28 seconds. Like I didn't even need a timer. Like I can just run, and spontaneously I would just run 28 seconds, which was always so crazy to me. But I was just always in tune with myself in that way. And
Cool.
like, even if there was like, okay, I'm feeling pain at this point, it was like, I had to become like mentally tough enough to be like, okay, push through this pain. I know it sucks. I know it hurts, but you're almost there. Like I was always like, I'm such a mental person, like a mental athlete, that I feel like I developed that through sports, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a cool gift to have. I feel like that's going to serve you really well as your journey continues to unfold.
I hope so.
You're going to be
But
like the spiritual doctor out there, I swear.
what did you say? It kind of cracked up.
I said you're going to be the spiritual doctor out there, where it's like you're using your intuitive gifts, but also all the things you've studied in and your experience. That's going to be cool.
I think so. And that's where, and like fast forward to now, where we just did that. I don't remember what reading we did before Christmas, or sorry, in the new year. I don't remember what that
Yeah,
was
it
called.
was a like a body one where we just clean out the energy that's kind of impacting your body. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's so crazy because honestly, that was spot on for me. Even when you said my workouts, like I wanted to tell you that's exactly how I work out. Like how you detailed it was exactly how I work out. So it was
Oh,
just
that's
funny how
cool.
like you were so spot on with everything you said. But I feel like now, when you said I'm closing the chapter and opening another book and writing a new chapter, and I'm losing my dance partner essentially, so life will feel a little bit out of sorts. It's funny because that's exactly how it's felt, and it didn't feel like that when I was home, but it felt like that when I got back to Dallas. Like I don't know how to explain it, but it's like even the people that I attract are just completely different now. Like I don't even know how to make that make sense, but it's just everything feels off in a good way.
Oh,
But
that's good.
it's like now it's like I feel like it's up to me to like write this chapter, and it's like the universe is almost waiting for me to like see what it is that I want to do. Like I don't know how to explain that, but
Yeah,
it
it's
just
a
feels
weird
really
feeling.
weird.
Basically, what Tash is talking about is when we do those clearings, what happens is like we're kind of, if you just, the universe is always in motion, okay? And we're constantly engaged in these dances with people, places, things. And when we do a clearing, it's basically like we just stop the music and you stop dancing and you can be like, okay, do I want to be a part of this dance still, or what do I want to do? And then we have like this eerie quiet, like you're talking about that uncomfortable eerie quiet where like nothing's happening. And the invitation is like walk up to the jukebox and pick a new song and a new dance, but it's uncomfortable. It does
It's
feel
weird.
weird, but then it is this like really cool like reset, and then you get to like choose a better song, choose better dance partners, choose a better
Yes.
way to move through it. But there is this like weird void of like nothing at first. And it's uncomfortable because we're always used to something.
Yeah. No, that's literally how it feels or kind of felt. Like I feel like now I'm kind of finding my step a little bit,
Yeah.
but I feel like it's been easier to attract things to myself, if that makes sense. Like I know
Mhm.
I've been really wanting a stable relationship, and it's like now because I started just like exactly what you said, as soon as there's a behavior something that does not align with me, instantly I'm like no. I'm like, universe, I don't want this. Bring me something better. And but it's crazy because it works. Like when you really like, it's a combination of that, but then it's like that self-love as well, because you're like, I know I deserve more than this, and I know I can get more than this. But if you put up with what you know you don't deserve, then you're going to get what you don't deserve. But if you only put up with what you deserve, you're only going to continue to get what you deserve. And so it's just crazy because the concept is so simple, but it's honestly very hard when you have, again, these childhood traumas and you have these environments that are normalized for you. So you attract what it is that you're so used to. Because now, like the last person I went on a date with, honestly, I don't even like, I to this day can't wrap my, and this was just a couple days ago, I can't wrap my head around, I never felt this way about someone before. Like I literally told my roommate this morning that I felt like how the Grinch felt when his heart expanded 10 times.
That is the best analogy.
Because I'm so like, I'm again, like one of the things that my goal is this year is working with that vulnerability and that intimacy that we talked about.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just like, it's uncomfortable for me to be vulnerable. It's so uncomfortable. And like, this person is just like really bringing it, like, bringing it out of me and doing like everything perfect. And it's like, I love it, but it's so uncomfortable at the same time because I'm just not used to it. So I'm trying not to sabotage it. And now that I'm self-aware, I can, like, I know when I had to talk to myself yesterday to be like, cut it out, cut it out, watch the TV and just focus on what, because it's just like when you're just not used to something, you just find this way, it just feels so weird. You're like, you like me? Like, it just feels so weird, but it feels good at the same time because like this is what it is that I've been like wanting to attract. So like,
it's so funny that you bring that up today because this is just the time period where the next round of the goddess course is about to start. And I want to tell you something that's very cool because this is probably you channeling your goddess energy that you just spoke about. So I kind of like do some meditations and I'm like, what do they want to talk about? And they were literally talking about the two different types of fear. So there's like regular everyday fear that you're conditioned to tolerate because that's the environment you're in. You're like, oh, I'm afraid of being vulnerable, but you're comfortable with that. So you're okay with that fear. You navigate it every day. You're like, yeah, I know I should be vulnerable, but I'm not gonna, that scares me, Yeah. But then there's like, they called it neurotic fear, which is like what it sounds like you're describing. And neurotic fear is literally when we start busting away from our conditioning and finding a different way to be that we've never been before. We know it doesn't logically make sense to be scared to be vulnerable. We're like, no, I know this is safe. I can do this. And then, but you can't control it. You're like, I'm just scared anyway. And then you start to feel crazy and you start to be like, am I losing it? Maybe this isn't for me. Why am I stressed out? But it's because it's a totally new avenue that doesn't make any sense to be afraid of. But because you really, that part of you that tried to keep you safe all of those years when you were, living in toxic environments has to let you go. Like, oh, you're safe now. And then you're like, I can't do it. I can't do it. And it's a very weird and uncomfortable fear, but like the goddesses were kind of saying, it starts to happen when you're actually moving in the right direction that you maybe haven't moved in before. So it's actually a good sign, but most of us freak out and think it's a bad sign. So it's really weird that you brought that up. I literally figured this out yesterday.
That's funny. Like literally, I mean, I can't swim, but it feels like I've just been thrown in the deep end. Yeah. That's how I feel. Well, just like, you got it.
You got it. So, you got your life. You got your spirit guides. You got your floaties. You'll be good.
Yeah, that's how I feel. So it's just trusting myself is one of the biggest lessons I'm learning as well, is really trusting myself and trusting my intuition, because it's really never led me wrong. So when I listen.
How did you start to connect your intuition? Was it the signs and synchronicities? Like, was it the body? Like, where was that, or what, if someone was asking like, hey, Tash, like, how do you connect your intuition? What are you doing? What would you say to them?
I would say that's something I'm still trying to figure out. And to be honest, in the weirdest way, I'll say this. So my family is Jamaican, and Jamaican people are really big on like, they'll say like my spirit doesn't take them. And my mom was always like that. And I remember when I was in elementary, I moved to Fort McMurray, which is like more north. For those who don't know, more north of Edmonton, more cold. And I remember for the first time, like there was this girl who was new to our school, and instantly I didn't like her. And I was like, whoa. I was like, I don't know why I don't like her, but I don't know. Something is like not right. And then I remember that like she used to bully kids, like pants them, all types of stuff. And then it was like, yep, it was like right there. My brain was like, yep, see. And it ended up being like we knew we didn't like her for a reason. And then as I got older, every time I felt that same way from that moment on, I was like, okay, let me watch out for this person. And then it always ended up being like right. And then in college, honestly, I started, it was kind of weird because I didn't really think about it as intuition. It just kind of was just this feeling. And again, with my mom, she'd always be like my spirit. So I'll just be like, it's probably just, this Jamaican spirit thing. And so in college, because I was doing so many courses, I remember when I would study anatomy, and anatomy was like one of the hardest classes for me when I first took it, because I just wasn't really applying myself. And I didn't really learn how my brain worked at that time. And I remember on the exam, like, it was like I would look at the test and instantly like an answer would come in my head. And then I noticed when I changed my answer from what originally was what I thought to be the answer, I would get them wrong. So then the more I tested, the more I was like, okay, the minute my like first inclination is, I'm just going to go for it, even if I don't know what the heck is going on. Mm-hmm. And then when I started doing that, I started getting like A's and stuff. And then I remember when I would be looking over the exams, I'd be like, I don't even know this. I don't even know how I got this right. But it was just like like now I know it's my intuition. But then, so that's how I started testing. And then when I found you, essentially, because by that point I was just already familiar with like testing in that way, I didn't think about it as intuition. I was like, okay, I'm seeing all these people with like, clairvoyance and clairaudience and all these things. And I know for me, like I'm clairaudient, but I'm still figuring out how to work this thing, because I don't feel like I'm still navigating these things. And that's why I did your intuition course, because I was like, okay, I need to try to develop these natural gifts that I have, because I know that I have them and I know that like they're there. And then when I did your intuition course, that's when I started, okay, pay attention to like what goes on in your mind. Because I remember now it's like, even today, it happened to me literally today. A thought popped in my head, I get a text. Like a person pops in my head, I get a text. Like that's literally how it goes. Like if I just think of something out the blue, normally it'll just come to fruition. And I'll be like, I won't be surprised anymore. But normally it's like, that's why I have to focus so hard on being in the present, because when I'm in the present, I'm more able to like be in tune with those kind of things.
You have this like amazing ability to like watch yourself. And I just seen a quote like yesterday, I think, and it was like, it said the word like an intellectual is somebody who can like watch themselves. And I feel like you just have this ability to, be present and like observe yourself. And then I can also tell that when you get those impulses, it's coming as a feeling or an impulse first, not a judgment. So then you feel something like, oh, why do I feel that way? Whereas like a lot of people, what happens, like they see a new girl at school and they're like, oh, I don't like her. But really what it is, they're like, oh, she's pretty. And they're maybe like jealous. It's like a judgment based on an appearance. But you literally said, I know I don't like them. And then you're like, oh, you were kind of offended. You were like, why do I feel that way? Like, do you see how like, just to anyone who's listening, the impulse comes first and you don't even know why it's coming to you, because it's not a judgment. Right? That I see that that's like what I can see that in how you respond to things. And so being present and like observing yourself or your thoughts. Like I can just tell your mind is very meticulously observing everything you're doing. Like it's cool.
It's really weird. And you pointing it out makes it make sense to me, because I'm very like, I'll say that a lot to people around me. And now it makes sense as to why people don't understand what I'm saying. It makes so much sense now because I'll say stuff and they'll be like, okay, like what was your point? But I think it's literally just me observe, like that was just my observation of myself.
Yeah.
So that just makes so much sense now why they wouldn't get it because they're like, where are you going with this? But
Yeah.
like that was, you just
But I
made
think
it
it's like
click.
I think that's a really evolved place to be. And at the beginning of the the podcast, you said I spent a lot of time alone, and I'm not saying that that's a good thing, but like you had a lot of time to be with yourself and analyze yourself. And I'm not saying obsessively analyzing
Yeah,
yourself is good, but I can tell that it's benefited you because you are really aware of yourself.
I try to be.
Yeah, and it's obviously helping you with like your intuition. So that's super cool. I've never like heard it described that way, but I can like see it and I'm like, oh. And that's true. Like even when I'm working with my intuition, like I when I'm distracted or I'm thinking about a million things or I'm worried about time or how good is my reading going to be, it's not as good because I'm not like clearly focusing on like what I'm hearing or what I'm feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's really interesting. That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, so
That's a
that's
new
why
way
I'm
to
just like,
describe it.
I really hope that I can get my gifts to be better. Like, I think it's coming along. Maybe I'm being impatient. I'm like, I want it to come along faster.
I feel
But
like it's coming along pretty quick.
at the same time, though, I know there was one specific week. I don't know exactly what happened that week, but like things got really, really scary. I told you about that week where like the synchronicities were just overwhelming. And I think maybe that's why I might not be ready. Like it was almost as if like I don't even know how to explain it, but it was like I was predicting everything before it happened and it was
Right.
freaking me out to the point where I was like, I just want to sit in the dark and not do anything.
Yeah, for sure.
Like it was actually scary. It was scary. It actually scared me.
Yeah, I remember you telling me about that. And yeah,
So
if you go too far, I don't want to say too far because it depends how
mhm,
like where you are. But sometimes
mhm,
like even I'll be in something and I'm like, is the world even real? Like you're like, what are we even doing here? Like there's this
yeah.
game that my sister and I play when we're on a really boring road trip. And
Mhm,
because we know that the world really isn't what we think it is, I will like manifest a car to see. So I'll be like, within the next hour, I want to see like a purple lowrider truck, which is, oh, you pick something weird that you'd never see
yeah.
here. And then sure enough, in an hour, the purple lowrider appears. An hour later, it's the like red, the red buggy or whatever. And you're like,
Mhm.
this is statistically impossible. It's one thing to get one or two right, but
Especially in
every hour,
Saskatchewan.
yeah,
Like,
exactly. Every hour in Saskatchewan, the
mm,
car that you're looking for drives by, like, yeah, right. And if you really
yeah.
think about it for too long, you're like, what is life? Like, it starts to freak you out. Like, I agree.
Yeah. So, I mean, but that's why I feel like my journey for me, I know the route that I've taken is going to be completely different from a lot of people because a lot of people don't, I don't want to say resonate, but a lot of people, they're like, oh, okay, that's interesting. But for them, it doesn't really make sense. And so I just feel like as long as you're working on yourself and as long as you're, trying to become more self-aware, you kind of end up where you're supposed to be one way or another. Because I know like you probably had a completely different route than I had. I mean,
Mhm.
I ended up finding you anyway, but
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
so it's just like because
And
I
it's
remember my
true. Like you'll stick with whatever you're doing
mm-hmm,
only as far as you can tolerate the comfort. Like as soon as you get to a level where you literally, like again, can't fathom another moment of this life, you
mm-hmm,
will do anything to reroute it. And those moments are awful, but like in some ways you're like, well, I'm kind of glad I got there because look where it took me. So even when
literally.
you're in those rock bottoms, like I heard a message not that long ago and it was like the low moments in life, you have to understand there is an equal to or greater high waiting for you if you just choose to keep moving.
Oh, I
And
love
I really
that.
believe that's
I felt
true.
that.
Yeah,
I
like I
felt
really
that.
believe that's true.
Mm-hmm. No, I definitely agree with that. And I just think that's the biggest thing is like people stop believing that it's possible for them
Hmm.
to get out of their circumstance or have more, or whatever it is. That's why I tell people, when you realize life is a game for real, like things just start getting more fun. But the hard thing is like you have to get through that, like almost like the dark ages first, to be honest. Because I saw a post on TikTok yesterday that was saying like, they don't, it was a guy, he was saying he doesn't like how the spiritual world makes everything feel like rainbows and daisies when it's really not. And it isn't. Like, it's a lot of ups and downs. It's a lot of like, I thought I was doing great, but maybe I'm not as good as I thought, or you know what I mean? Like it's not this like linear journey. And that's the beauty of it though, because along my journey with you, even like every time I find something out, I'm like, okay, this is great. Like I have a direction to go in, and then I'll find myself kind of like falling off track, or I'm not where I need to be. And then I might do another course or another thing with you, and then I'll be like, okay, this is what I need to do. This is okay. She confirmed this, or now I have tools of divination that I can use to help me, which honestly, like I've only been doing tarot for myself from our spiritual or intuition course, but like even when I do like a one card pull for myself, it's always spot on. Like the first card I ever pulled, Kayla, was the Joker. The first card I ever pulled. And I was like, okay, we're going to start this
Crazy.
journey.
Yeah. What are even the odds of that?
What are the odds, literally?
Yeah. Wow. That's so cool.
Yeah.
I know. And you're right. It does have the lows. Like, even for me, like, I think, there's sometimes this illusion that like, oh, well, Kayla's helping other people or doing whatever, she must have it all together. 2022 was the worst year of my life to date, like to date. Yeah. And it was just it wasn't like a million things went wrong, but it was like one thing happened and then it was like the house of cards crumbled. And I felt like I don't want to say I hit a rock bottom, but I hit like an emotional rock bottom. And when you're in that rock bottom, it's really easy to be like, why is this happening to me? I don't get why, good things happen to good, or bad things happen to good people. But like now that that hindsight, you're like, oh, I needed that to happen because I wasn't in touch with my emotions the way that I needed to be. That was the last part of me I took care of. I could just eat stress all day, every day. And finally, I couldn't take that path anymore. And they had to, literally stop you. And then you have to figure out a better way,
Yeah.
So seeing those like dark moments as opportunities to like build something that's actually more aligned makes it more fun.
Yeah. Because you're like, okay, where do I go from here? How do I like reroute myself? How do I reset? And that's the reason why I'm so grateful for that childhood trauma course and just having that like blueprint to be able to be like, okay, let me just refer to this. And that's honestly how I've been living my life now. Like, even just in my relationships, like I've made it an effort to be more vulnerable with people. I've made it an effort to, like you said, explain my thought process. That has literally changed my life. Because awesome. No, it honestly has, because a lot of people don't realize like explaining your thought process is just essentially communicating. And I feel like when I'm the type of person that I just have this natural gift where people just come to me and open up, even people that just like, I never thought in a million years would just talk to me about their deepest secrets and stuff and just confide in me. And so what I realized I was creating this illusion that there was this reciprocity when there wasn't, because they would feel so comfortable with me, but I never had to open up, but they still trusted me, So it was just like, I got away with it. I was just like living life, getting away with not being vulnerable because everyone was being vulnerable with me. And then it wasn't until you said like, you can't attract a vulnerable partner. You can't attract vulnerable situations and those really like those heart-filled moments in life without being vulnerable. So this is so hard. I'm not gonna say it's hard, but it's just awkward for me.
Yes.
And I'm navigating it. But like when you said that, explain your thought process, that it clicked in my brain. Whereas before it just wasn't clicking. Like I just did not understand how to get myself there. But then when you said explain your thought process to people, I was like, okay, because I think differently than a lot of people is what I'm realizing. I do think really differently. So that
Yeah.
really
And
does help me.
even I can see that. It's not that, to me, I don't think that you think differently, but you're very
Mhm.
aware. Like you are seeing the ins and outs of things. You're aware of yourself. And most people just generally aren't that aware. So it's like, how are you getting this? You know, and you have to be like, I'm getting this because you did this or
Mhm.
whatever your story is. But that's awesome that that's helpful.
Yeah.
That's cool. I know.
Yeah.
Everything is just so, it's so fascinating when you choose to see life as that game or as that adventure. And then like
Mhm.
you just move through things so quickly. Like, you know, to think that your rock bottom was in 2020 and here we are at the beginning of 2023 and the amount of ground you've covered, like, yeah, must be the Aries in you. Like, oh, I've learned something. I got to put it into practice right now because you're
Right.
moving so
Literally
quickly. Holy man.
right now. That's how I am. It's kind of funny that you say that. But what I did notice though is like along my journey, especially the childhood trauma course helped me talk to my parents individually. And I talked to them about their childhood to understand how it affected them. And then when I understood how their childhood affected them, I could then understand how that shaped their relationship with me. And so I was able to change the way I thought about things that I used to interpret a certain way. And then now my relationship with my parents, like individually and together, is like amazing because I just have such a greater understanding of, okay, well, I know you couldn't give me what you never had, but I couldn't understand that if I didn't know what you had to begin with, you
Wow.
know?
That's powerful. And I feel that like when you say that, it always reminds me of like, you know, when our grandparents and stuff pass away, we're always like, oh, I wish I could have like had that conversation with them. And like, yeah, maybe it's awkward to have that conversation with your parents now, but like it
Mm-hmm.
really does bring a lot of clarity. I can say the same
So
from my
much.
own experience. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
don't pry like too much, but every time I do get a glimpse of what my parents went through, I'm
Yeah.
like, damn, you did a fucking good job raising me. When before you're kind of like, why would you do that? You know, and now you're like, you kudos to you because you
You
killed it
got
out
it.
there.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why I said, like, you know, you might get a toolkit and your parents might have just had a hammer in it. And they just tried to give you a screwdriver. And now you might just have a screwdriver and a hammer and you got to collect, your own tools. But all they
Mhm.
started with was maybe an empty one.
Exactly.
So I just like this journey is honestly just fascinating. And it's like when you really look at things from different perspectives and just understand that we're all here, like really just wandering. Like there's no rules on how to live life the right way or the wrong way. There's no like, okay, as a parent you need to do ABC. There's no like instruction manual on how to like be a human. And so I feel like when you learn to just give yourself grace for like the fuck ups, and you're like, okay, like this didn't go how I thought it was going to go, but what did I learn from this and how can I do better moving forward? Like life will just get a lot better when you give yourself grace. Like I had to learn not to be so hard on myself because that's how, like, I used to be so hard on myself with that. And now I'm just like, I mean, I've never done this before. I've never been myself in this life, in this body, and whatever. I've never did this before. If I did this before, I'm sure I probably wouldn't have made the mistakes that I made.
Yeah, I sure I
So
wouldn't have chosen it twice.
yeah,
One
I
and
wouldn't
move
do it.
on. But that's true. Wow, that's so wise.
So I think like it's hard because when people say like, how do you find happiness? I feel like that's such a hard question because happiness is so subjective to each person. Like for me, happiness is like I love my life. I work from home. I'm living in the city I've always wanted to live in. Like I'm discovering all these new things. I'm meeting new people. Like it's for me, it's just like it's only sky's the limit. I know I can attract what it is I want to attract. I just have to make the right decisions. Like I just know that whatever it is that I want, I can get. And so it's like no matter what happens, life can never be like as miserable as it was before because I have this knowledge now that I know like I'm not a victim of my circumstances. I just have to choose the path that I want to take and venture on it and stick to it. You're going to have tests, you're going to have trials for sure, but it's easier to face when you have that like unreasonable doubt that things are going to work out for you.
Wow, that is so true. And like that's something that's like, to me, in my experience, the exact thing that you just said is the foundation upon which keeps me going. Like every
Hmm.
once in a while, life does get hard and things are
Yeah.
challenging and you can't
Yeah.
run from pain forever. Like you are gonna hit bumps in the road. But the
Yeah.
challenge is to remember that like you're in this life for a reason. You came here. You're, no matter how you spin it. And I mean, if you're listening to this podcast, I'm assuming that you believe in something spiritual, but no matter how you spin it, you are a part of this universe. And the universe doesn't make any errors. It is a perfect science, and you are meant to be here. And you did not come here to be miserable. I can guarantee it. So at
I
the end
care
of the
too.
day, as long as you can remember that, you're good. And
Mhm.
sometimes we do have to undo some of that childhood conditioning to remember that we're worthy of anything, but
Of course.
that's so true. That's so true.
That's why
And
I
I
said
think
it's
like,
not easy.
no, it's not easy. And when you say defining happiness, I think that's really important because at the beginning of last year, when I was in my emotional slum, I remember being like, I will do anything not to feel this way. I will do
Yeah.
anything to not feel shitty anymore. But
Hmm.
then you're just trying to run away from a negative feeling, but you don't even know what you're running towards.
Yeah, that makes
Like
sense.
one of the biggest things that shifted my like journey was like, okay, well, what is it that you really want? Like, where are
Hmm.
you trying to go? Because if you don't know where you're going, you can't make a plan to make decisions to get there. So
No,
like,
true.
and what you define as your goal or your objective doesn't have to stay that way forever. It's allowed to evolve,
Yeah, of
but
course.
you've got to take that time to get to know where you want to go, right?
Hmm.
You knew
Yeah, that
you
was like
loved
me with
Dallas. You
Dallas.
knew you
Yeah.
wanted to work from home. You know you want a good relationship. So you're able to say, hey, this works and this doesn't. This aligns and this doesn't. But most people,
Yeah,
I don't think,
that's
spend that
true.
time. So then they're just in a bunch of places that they don't want to be.
No, that's very true. And I think that's the importance of goal setting that I didn't realize that I feel like you just brought light to. Because when you have a goal, you can make plans to attain that goal. And to be honest, the universe can at least be like, okay, at least you have a goal.
Mm-hmm.
But like when there's no goal, then universe is just like, okay, we're just waiting for you to, and then if you're just in limbo, you're just going to keep getting like the same situations that kind of just keep you in limbo because the universe doesn't know what to give you. You might just get a bunch of random stuff because you're picking a bunch of random stuff with no direction.
Exactly. I really believe that's exactly how it works. You don't know what you want. It's vague. You're getting vague results. You're one step forward, you're two steps back. Like it feels like you can't get anywhere because you've never said this way, right? Like,
Yeah, and that's why one of the things I was thinking about, because I was watching this movie called The Secret, which talks about the law of attraction. I don't
mhm.
know if you've seen it, but
Yeah.
highly recommend. And it just kind of like made me think about, because there's so many times where we see people that are like, oh, I'm in this amazing relationship, but they'll say that they're not like healed or something, or they'll be like, I don't even know how I got this. And you're like, well, how did this person like attract this without doing like the work? Or how did, but then it's just like, again, with the law of attraction, if you believe that you can really manifest whatever you want. So then it's just interesting because how I feel is that like you can manifest what you want, but if you don't have like that inner work as well, then it's hard to maintain it. You know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Yeah.
So it's just, I feel like that's why the goal setting is so important because it's like those little steps that you take to achieve the big milestone is what helps you maintain the goal that you set out for yourself because you have
Exactly.
that foundation.
Exactly. And I have seen like a few times where people, get a victory. Actually, last year I heard a really great piece of advice. I was actually in the goddess course last year. It was my teacher, and
Okay.
she said like oftentimes we're afraid to reach greatness because yeah, we think we can't maintain it. But she said to me, do you not realize that you attract what is a match for what's inside? So if you keep expanding and growing and learning and evolving, you will keep expanding, attracting, growing and evolving your bank account, your relationships, your community, your whatever. She's like, expanding who you are or developing who you are only expands your opportunities, your connections, and develops them further. Like it has to be a match. And then she said to me, she's like, why do you think only like old wise people win the lottery and can actually use it the way that they want to. It's because they have the inner foundation and the know-how to actually manage that money. When somebody like young and careless who puts money on a pedestal wins, boom, they might have a couple good experiences, but it's gone because they didn't have the wisdom or the expansion to maintain that money. And I was like, damn, girl, that is good info. Like, and you just said it, like you literally just said it. And I only learned that like last year even. Like I was like, oh yeah, of course I can maintain my next level of success because I'm stronger within because I've done the work.
Yeah. No, that's why it's definitely interesting because now I feel like I'm even more observant of myself, even just in relationships, because I know I do have to work on that vulnerable side of myself, and I haven't really been in a relationship. I'm interested in, when I do get in a relationship, how that's going to work, because I know I have a lot to learn there, because it'll just be new territory for me. And I'm going to have that like neurotic, what you called
Neurotic
before.
fear.
Yeah, that neurotic fear. So
I think just like being honest about it, like,
mm-hmm.
and just be like, yeah, like this is kind of new to me. Like, I don't know. I think like just telling the truth, like that's the vulnerability part, right? And then making like having fun with it. Like you even said it yourself. I've never been here before in this body, in this experience. And then almost like laughing about it. Like, of course I don't know what I'm doing. Of course I'm not perfect. And then be like, isn't that funny? Like we come here with the wisdom of the world in our heart because we're divine and perfect beings, but we literally deliberately forget to see how we can navigate this. Like that's funny.
That is
that's
a joke.
Funny shit. That's a cosmic joke.
That is a joke. That's a sick joke, actually.
It's a sick joke we played on ourselves, which is the worst part.
That's a sick joke.
Man, this was awesome, Tash. Like you laid out some hard wisdom out there. Like I love everything you said. So
thank you.
If people want to find more of you, like do you have a platform where you talk about this stuff or you share your daily wisdom? Is there any way people can find you if they're interested?
I do have a TikTok page. It's called Talks with T. I think it's Talks with _T. Okay. But
I'll put
you can find me there. Thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm doing better at posting every day. I'm just trying to find, again, that's another area I'm trying to find my direction in content, and just my goal is to just literally help spread happiness and light and positivity and healing. So I just share my experiences and just like we're growing together.
I love that. Okay. I will put your handle in the description if people want to find you. And yeah, thanks so much. This was awesome.
Yeah, thank you.